Hey everyone, what is going on? I'm Matthew Oliver, and this is Stillwater Alchemy, the podcast, episode 15, Reinvent Yourself. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how you are shifting and evolving all the time, and how you've already done so multiple times, and how we can use this upcoming Pisces new moon to completely shift in ways that are going to benefit you a long term. So let's dive in, shall we? Before hitting record on this podcast, I was thinking about one of the ways where people love to showcase a massive reveal or how they've reinvented themselves. And if you just take a moment, it's pretty obvious. People love to post transformation photos of their body, right? Or of their homes. And both the body and the home is linked to the moon. So this notion of people are obsessed or love to see shifts in a lunar domain. And we know that the moon changes phases and moves the quickest out of all of the planets. And so if we're thinking about, oh, like this topic of wanting things to stay the same, we wanted to ensure that like when we're on a high, that this can be maintained. It's like that doesn't really ever make sense. You're always changing, you're always evolving, you're always reinventing yourself. If you've been with me for a long time and follow my content, you know that one of my favorite phrases is none of this is real. It's like a glorified video game. And so if you want to just think of yourself as like an avatar getting an upgrade or leveling up, then that's all we're doing all the time. And it's also a nice feeling as well in the notion of necessity breeds innovation, that if you are feeling stuck, or if you're feeling frustrated, or like things haven't been moving for a while, like I'm not just talking in 2025, but if you're feeling like, oh, like this is just getting really frustrating, why aren't things changing? I would really challenge yourself to reflect back and see where you have made changes and where you've been building the internal foundation for this massive success to flow. Over the past few episodes, even of this podcast, we've been talking about how the shift of the mindset, how changing, how adapting is going to be beneficial for the human long term. And spoiler, as I mentioned before, you're always doing it whether you realize it or not. And here's the thing. If we're talking about this over the scale of a year, or over the scale of 5 years, over the scale of your life, if we're thinking about when we're younger, it's so easy just to shift your mind and opinion because there aren't blocks of time that support a different narrative. If you talk to a friend on the playground and they're like, hey, there's this new chocolate bar, it's one of the best chocolate bars I've ever had, you're like, great. You wouldn't believe that your favorite chocolate bar is the best because you've been eating it for 30 years. You're like, oh, a brand new chocolate bar, amazing. If someone's like, hey, there's this new opportunity, you're going to make three times as much money, you're like, no, I don't think that's possible. That sounds too good to be true. Like, you'd have all these defenses and all these contractions as to how that couldn't be possible. But if someone said, hey, you could start your own business in a matter of 3 years, you could be tripling your income if you stay diligent and invest in the right places. That's true. We all know that's true, but whether or not you want to put in the work and leave a place of security to do so is a completely different story. However, I want to, for those of you watching the video version on Stillwater Alchemy's YouTube page, I just want to show this Pisces new moon because it really emphasizes everything. Even if we go back to the notion of going to the gym, being more mindful of your health and completely shifting your body. That would be relating to the moon, Saturn, discipline, boundaries, Mars, the action of doing things and shifting your energy in a different direction. Of course, Venus plays a part there of like most people wanting it to have some sort of aesthetic appeal or to increase their beauty or sex desirability to others. However, with this new moon in Pisces, we can see that we have the sun and moon at 9 degrees. Jupiter is at 12 degrees of Gemini, and this is Jupiter in an air sign. These are our thoughts, our beliefs, expansion, opportunity through words, through communicating, through the mind, right? This air element. And then the sun and moon are in a water sign, Pisces. So it's our emotional shift. This is a mutable water sign. So being able to adapt and pivot and change our elements of water within us so that Jupiter and air sign can flow. And so this can just kind of be manifestation 101, where what is it you want to feel? and what needs to shift to get you to that point. If you're wanting to feel productive, if you want to feel desirable, if you want to feel calm, if you want to feel whatever it is, what needs to change? How can you reinvent yourself to get there quicker? And the moon is not only making a square to Jupiter, we can also see it's making that applied aspect to both Saturn, Mercury, the North Node, Neptune. Like we have the initiation of that new moon on Thursday, February 27th, but in the days that follow, which is very poetic, right? This is the end of February, moving into the beginning of March. And then in March, we have the eclipses. I believe they're on the 14th and the 28th of March. So already going into this page of complete shift recalibration. And so knowing that it's going to be so advantageous for you to choose how you want to reinvent yourself and in what area of your life, because it can sometimes be overwhelming and daunting to try and do it everywhere. I understand there's only so many hours in a day. Many of you already have obligations, duty, family, loved ones that you're taking care of, or that you owe time and energy to. One way we can look at this and seeing where you're reinventing yourself is going to be the house in which Pisces rules in your natal chart, right? We know there's this new moon activation. There are five planets that are going to be in the sign of Pisces during this Pisces new moon. So you have the sun, the moon, Mercury, Saturn, and Neptune. So this can really be tuning your mind, your thoughts towards your dreams and being extremely disciplined on how you're wanting to perceive that energy as a macro theme and then going in a micro theme of in your specific chart. Is that in health? Is that in finances? Is this in relationships? Is this in career? Like, where is this happening specifically for you? And chances are you've already been feeling this energy, given that there's prominent of Pisces energy all started when we moved into Pisces season. Number two, you can also show yourself where this expansiveness, like where your thoughts are leading you, what you've been thinking about nonstop, what you've been talking about, what you've been curious about, because that energy from Jupiter and Gemini has also been prevalent since May of 2024. So this square between Pisces and Jupiter has been activated for quite a while, right? Because we've had Jupiter there, we've had Saturn and Pisces for a couple of years already, and Neptune. So with this surplus of Pisces energy, it's going to show you, it's like, okay, where is this square where I'm going to have to put in some work? There's going to be some friction, there's going to be some change involved. How can this lead to me reinventing myself? And one way, as I mentioned before, you've already been reinventing yourself. Every time you've had a new belief, anytime you've formed a new habit, you've been reinventing yourself to become stronger, more disciplined, more thoughtful, more talented, more beautiful, whatever it was, you've already constantly been reinventing yourself. And it's also like the notion of iPhones launching a new model almost every year. And if that model gives more space, more power, more resolution, whatever it is, it allows us to operate ideally more proficiently in our day to day. At least that's what they're trying to sell us, right? But if your vessel, your mind, your spirit can help yourself operate at a higher level, then why wouldn't you want that upgrade? Why wouldn't you want more energy to enjoy a loving relationship and a beautiful family? Why wouldn't you want a calmer mind to withstand the turbulence of intense world affairs that are going on that you can't necessarily control? Why wouldn't you want a deeper connection to source, God, universal energy to enrich your life and to literally see in front of you when that magic is happening? And so if there was a little chip that you could just insert into your head or a pill that you could swallow to get that upgrade, you likely would. Right? And you don't need a pill, you don't need a magic computer chip. It's just making those actions thoughtfully and methodically each and every day. Now, I know that sounds easier in concept than in execution. So how can this help? Well, if you are in a space where it feels safe to play, to experiment, to fail, as you are recalibrating to this upgrade, it's likely to make the process significantly more obtainable and even one that you want to accept. If you already feel like you're going to fail, it's not going to work, and that people are going to ridicule you nonstop based on past experiences, that's not going to be beneficial for anyone. I know for me, you can take this if it resonates. If I'm approaching something that has been very challenging in the past or that I've had trauma from, that has been a very unpleasant experience, when I'm re-entering it with a new individual, then I will tell them, hey, in the past, this has been something that has been challenging or that has caused me a lot of pain or anxiety because of this and this and this. However, my intention for our connection or for this time together is so that I can shift my mind so that this becomes easier for me, so that the individual who I'm engaging with understands where the change needs to happen or what I'm looking for in this collaboration, in this relationship, in this service. Because humans, as incredible as they are very precious. They also have their own thoughts and dreams and families and challenges. They're not going to know what you need or what you want unless you tell them. And also, albeit sometimes as well a little bit challenging to be vulnerable and to express how you feel. If you don't tell someone how you feel or what type of accountability and support you need for this reinvention to happen, it's also going to be hard for them to even know how to support you. So if you have friends that could help support you or help to keep you accountable, that's one incredible place where they're going to be there to hold you to your resolve to ensure that this upgrade goes very, very well. Let's say you're in a state right now where you're releasing relationships and you're in a space where it's like, well, I don't have anyone necessarily that I trust to hold space for me as I do these shifts. Well, there are going to be healers, there are going to be groups, there are going to be environments that can at least attune you to that frequency. Does it mean that's going to be an investment of time, energy, and money? Of course. But if you truly believe that all of these investments will come back to you, then why wouldn't you want to invest? It's also kind of interesting. I posted a little while ago on Stillwater's Instagram. Like, if you knew that if you invested $10,000 and it would double in 3 months' time, would you do it? Or triple in 2 months' time, whenever I worded it? And 9% of people said no. And the question wasn't, do you have $10,000 to invest? And if you did, you know that it would double or triple. The question was, if you knew that you would invest a dollar amount and it would double in a certain amount of time, would you do it? People said no. So it is also something as well where people may have, and you listening may have an extreme fear or doubt that things will ever change. But that's where I implore you to look back, even prove from when you were a child with far less autonomy, power, and control over yourself and your actions that you have changed. Even if it was a change that you look back on, you're like, I didn't want that. You still show that you were able to change and to do things, whether it was an external stimuli or an internal stimuli. And that's a big thing, is like humans are subconscious. We need evidence. We love looking at reviews for movies, hotels, whatever it may be, so that we can see how it gauges or to like see other people's words. For me personally, when I'm looking at reviews, I will think to myself, does this person, like, one, is this person real or were they hired by the company to give a review in exchange for some monetary amount, whether it be dollars or a gift card? Because that happens so much in business. That's a whole other conversation. Number two, I think, is this person not being heard in other parts of their life? So they want to leave a bad or a negative review to finally be heard and kind of like stick it to the business or company. Of course, there are going to be bad experiences. We have to be very mindful that sometimes it's the exact truth. But if it's certain things about money, sometimes I'm like, well, if the dollar amount was listed on the website and you got there and that we had to pay, or you didn't read the terms and conditions and then now you're complaining about a hotel's checkout fees, like that's a little precious. But that's okay. My point is that sometimes, even if we have evidence from other people, we know what's true for us. And that can be where the contraction, the challenge is when you're between the old life and the new life, or the one version before you reinvent and upgrade to the new version, is like you might not have the necessary evidence or the blueprint of where you're meant to go. So many people wanted me to talk about Pluto in Aquarius when it first entered, and then when it permanently entered last year in November, and now that's going to be here for 20 years. And I'm like, Pluto in Aquarius. Aquarius is a Saturn ruled sign with a modern affiliation to Uranus. There's this notion of doing things in a way that no one has ever done it, in a way that you don't want to do it like everyone else, because it's going to be unique to you. It's going to be authentic to yourself. And so I hear so many times clients will say, I'm not good at social media. I'm not good at marketing. I'm not good at branding. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. I'm like, you probably are, but you've now had this belief that you're not good at X, Y, and Z. But if you want to make money as an entrepreneur, you're going to have to reinvent yourself really quick to have a different perception of who you are in relation to branding, in terms of connection, in terms of beauty, in terms of all of these things. Because if you don't change, then you're going to die. Like that's literally that notion of survival of the fittest, right? It's like evolve or die. And it doesn't have to be that intense, but I want to again emphasize you have already been changing your entire life. Your mind, your body, your spirit. When you were younger, when you're an adult, now, wherever your current point is. So, where do you want to reinvent yourself? What evidence that you've probably already done this either in this exact area of your life that you're wanting or in another area of your life where it's like, okay, if I really want to reinvent myself in career and I've reinvented myself in my health and fitness, if I've already known that I've reinvented myself in health and fitness multiple times, then I know I have the ability to reinvent myself in career. I might not have as much evidence in this current moment, but if I stay consistent, I know I can reinvent myself. If you are needing that extra support from friends, family, experts, or community, that is where you need to find the right spaces and the right connections and the right environments for you to do so. I will say I'm someone who loves learning. I have my natal Jupiter in Virgo. And I went to a lot of classes in a lot of things that I'm very interested, including like acting and voiceover. And I can feel within my body when the instructor is someone that I really connect with, someone that I really trust, where I'm like, you're doing this purely from a heart-centered space where you want to see the artist succeed. Because a lot of times with like acting, the arts in general, sometimes it can be very subjective. And sure, there's certain techniques, or like you can tell if the artist has done their work to prepare for the display of talent. But other times it's like this is just their own ego or they're projecting, or it's like if they're not projecting, it's like I just don't resonate with their energy or how they instruct or how they work. And so knowing that in the sense of maybe you didn't have the right environments and the right support so that you have a lot of evidence of what doesn't feel good to move into a space of what does feel good so that we can continue moving forward to say, do I feel safe? Am I able to open up to a new way of living and thinking and being? And this all comes back to this Pisces new moon with both luminaries, the sun and moon, making a direct square to Jupiter. And all of that Pisces energy, with it being a mutable water sign ruled by Jupiter, it comes to us like if we are in our own internal faith and emotions and not feeling how we want to feel, then we're going to immediately revert back to, or often revert back to, things that do help us feel how we want to feel. And sometimes it's just completely numbing out and crashing out because we don't want to get our hopes up to then get hurt, or we don't want to try and then get embarrassed. We don't want to put all this work and not see the return on investment. However, are we fully giving ourselves a chance to get the full upgrade, to fully reinvent ourselves? Can you imagine if some of the greatest inventors of our time just gave up because it wasn't working, or they felt stuck, or someone told them they were crazy? We know the story and how it ends. You are now at a crossroads. If this podcast found you at whatever point, it's further evidence showing you that you are on the precipice of change, of reinventing yourself to your best self. Another one of my favorite sayings is life is like a video game. And so if life is a video game and we are an avatar being played by the universe, and then the universe is just like the creator, so it's just like multiple points of none of this is real. And if you are, let's just say in this metaphor, if you would let me entertain you with this, if you are an avatar and you can literally change your profession, your appearance, your relationships like you're playing a Sims video game, then how would you want to change knowing that you can just fast forward time, not in a bad way, but being like, okay, I can see myself in a year being healthier, being happier, being in a job that I like, knowing that this is not going to be your permanent reality. Quote unquote, good or bad, things are going to change. They're always going to change. Whether you want to attach yourself to upgrade, to level up, to reinvent yourself is up to you. But knowing that one, you've already done it. Two, you can do whatever you want. And three, with the right relationships, support, and environment, you can do anything. And so that's also depending on where you're at in your journey, just identifying what phase you need. Is it that you simply need to get clear on who you are and who you want to become and where that reinvention gets to come? Two, is it the relationships in your life? And This is a feedback I get from a lot of clients where I don't have a lot of friends, or I've let go of so many people because I've been doing the work and I realize they were all toxic. That's fine. You know that that's only going to be temporary, that you're not going to be without relationships for long because doing this work, it's better to do this now than never. Number one. Number two, to get to a point where you're divorced and have like no assets to help support yourself to then build new relationships. Like being in the space now where you have completely free range to fill up the roster of love and relationships in your life is a phenomenal, powerful place to be. Trust and believe. And also, if you truly invest in doing the spiritual work, I've heard this from so many people, from so many spiritual people, from so many people that don't even believe God and the universe, that a lot of this work is done alone because it is completely recalibrating, doing all this work, going through it again and again and again. And if you can't stay consistent and accountable on your own in those moments of hardship, it's going to be hard because then you're always seeking validation and support from other people to recalibrate you versus knowing how to recalibrate yourself. It's like having a website being designed by someone else and you have no idea how it works. And then if it goes offline or off the grid and people are like, hey, where's your website? How do we do this? And you're like, I don't know. I didn't create the website. It was created for me. That is going to be a very tricky place to be in. So like having someone else reinvent you and telling you what you should and shouldn't do when you have an identity crisis and being like, my whole life I was taught and programmed to think that this was the way out or that this was the way in. It's like, no, that was their interpretation. You get to free yourself of this matrix, so to speak, to be whoever you want. And once you give yourself that freedom to be and to feel whatever you want to do, then you can be like, great. If these relationships aren't aligned, I'm just going to focus on the relationship with me. I'll be a cliche and trite. It's true. If you can't even come into that realization of who you are and feeling safe with yourself, you're going to consistently attract more and more mirrors of other people that are going to show that wound until you heal. That's also another good episode idea. Mirrors. That'll be coming soon. Stay tuned. And the last place is those environments. And in those environments, spoiler, you don't need to engage with anyone. It's those environments allowing you feel how you want to feel. And another good way of summoning an environment is music, right? You can close your eyes and now you're completely entranced into an environment. If you want to listen to waves, if you want to listen to upbeat music, if you want to listen to chill music, like you are completely transported to a new environment. If you close your eyes and listen to people of prominence, of power, of intellect, then you get to be in that environment of their wisdom, their love, their talent, right? But also be very mindful, especially with songs with lyrics that are interesting, that may or may not be aligned to how you wish to feel, that those words are being into your subconscious. I know that's like a little bit woo and that can be very disciplined, but a lot of lyrics and a lot of songs I choose not to listen to because I'm like, I'm not going to have that word or that phrase in my head over and over again because that's not what I believe and that's not the emotional environment that I want to place myself in if I'm calling myself higher. If I'm in that kind of cocoon phase and going for a massive level up, oftentimes the first thing that will go is most music and I really just be very mindful of listening to music that I want to listen to and that's kind of like a little wink from the universe. If I go to the gym and don't want to have like AirPods in, then the music that does play, I'm like, okay, like what kind of intuitive mirrors are being reflected through this music at this time that just so happen to be at the gym? If you know, you know, that's a whole other thing. But I just want to share that because this can be, especially if you are doing it in a place where you're not selling your soul or doing things unethically or trying to contort or manipulate others to get where you want to be. You are completely reconstructing potentially generations worth of trauma and being programmed in a certain way to act and to operate and to love in ways that make other people feel good, but not your own spirit. So once you give yourself your permission to live the way you want to live, sometimes you're dismantling generations worth of work. It's like doing taxes for 90 years and you're like, I thought I was going to be doing my own tax and now I'm doing taxes for 12 people over the past 90 years. How is that fair? And it's like, it's not. Now you're just in a room with like stacks of paper and files and receipts and you're like, I just want to do my taxes. I want to focus on what I need to focus on, not what I need to focus on for everyone else. And so sometimes you're dealing with nine, like hypothetically speaking, 90 years worth of taxes for 12 different people. You might not leave that room or that home very often because you want to get through all of this to be like, okay, all accounts are cleared, everything is closed. Now I just get to focus on me. And I know that isn't fair. Most of when you're having to transmute and deal with other people's trauma and karma, it isn't fair. But the soul somehow thought it was fun and a challenge that we get to work through this in this timeline to help to heal, to repair, to inspire others. And so that is kind of the last key here is the environment piece through the emotional feeling and the relationships that we hold because If you look at certain celebrity couples and the lawsuits that entail, you'll know that your relationships and you decide to connect with have a huge impact on every aspect of your life. So if you take the time to heal, take the time to ground into who you are, and then shift accordingly, you become the best version consistently, and you only would attract people that want to do that work alongside you, that support one another. And that's what I believe is a big lesson here with this Pisces new moon acting as a pit stop before we get to the eclipses, is that all of this gets to work in your favor if you allow it to, and if you just give yourself the time and space to believe, to dream, to expand, to have these new thoughts, which will then lead to new feelings, new environments, and relationships that will provide this new, elevated, reinvented version of self. All right. So let me know how that feels. There was a lot going on in there. As always, a multitude of resources through Stillwater Alchemy and Stillwater Alchemy's online community, The Alchemy Point, if you're wanting more. Otherwise, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. I'm also low key curious if people that constantly buy the newest model of the iPhone or like certain tech gadgets, if there is some correlation with them making more money or being more successful or being more mentally astute, just because there's that notion that it's like, well, it does give me some type of advantage, and so those people are always seeking an advantage, or if it's just simply a cash grab. So if you have any insight on that, let me know.